Well, hello and welcome once again to the DCL podcast, where we're inviting you to sit back, relax, and we'll be on our way shortly.
Well, welcome back to the DCL podcast, your podcast to cruise a little smarter. I'm your host, Lake, and I'm joined by my co-host, Christy. Christy, how are you today?
I am well, Lake. How are you?
Doing pretty good. We are talking about the newest ship in the Disney fleet, or the newest active sailing ship, I should say.
Well, that's a complicated. I have to unpack that, yes, because, the Adventure's out there being built and the Destiny is out there being built, but
The Adventure is out there floating.
I know. There's a lot of good pictures. You can follow the Meyer Werft shipyard and they post pictures. So this week they just posted another one of the front of the ship and a little of the side. It's beautiful. I'm so excited that we have a listener that is cruising on the inaugural, so we get to have some feedback on how that cruise is.
Yes, but we are going to turn towards active sailing ships. And once again, the newest ship in the fleet, the Disney Treasure.
And maybe the coolest, as of now, ship in the fleet, the Disney Treasure.
I'm so jealous. I still do not have anything booked for the Treasure. And I really, it is, I think, the most interesting ship theme-wise of the fleet right now.
This is going to be your white whale.
It will probably be my white whale, to be honest, because the fantasy doing the 7 nights was my white whale before.
Yep. Well, let's get to it.
Yep. Let's bring our guest on this week. We would like to welcome Jacqueline to the show. Jacqueline, how are you today?
Hey guys, I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing pretty good. Thank you for filling out the form and coming to share your trip and your experience with us.
Of course. It's my favorite topic to talk about. So I'm sure everyone in my life is sick of hearing about it. So I'm happy to talk about it with fellow cruisers and enthusiast people about this wonderful way to vacation.
Well, that is exactly what we are here for. Why don't you go ahead and start by telling our listeners a little bit about your Disney and cruising background?
Sure. So I grew up going to Disney fairly regularly, about once a year. And then when we had my first son, who's now 9 years old, my husband had never been to Disney. His wasn't a Disney family growing up. So we took my son when he was 2 for his first trip. We had actually just found out I was pregnant with my daughter when we took him. So we did a little Big Brother Mickey hat announcement in front of the castle. And then once my daughter was born, we have gone pretty regularly and pretty consistently. And we decided to go on our first cruise in November of 2023 that followed Disney and Universal vacation. And we ended it with a 3-night on the Wish. I had never been on a cruise ship before. My husband had been once on Royal Caribbean for a work trip. And we just thought it was such a fun way to vacation with the kids. The kids loved it. And it's such a safe way for us to cruise with my daughter. She's a type 1 diabetic and she has celiac disease. So it's just, we feel so safe with her being able to eat what she wants. And they make it so wonderful. They're so accommodating. So after that, we had decided to plan my 40th birthday trip last summer. We flew out to Barcelona and did a 7-night on the Dream all throughout Italy. So that was just such a wonderful trip. My son's only complaint was we didn't spend enough time on the ship. So that's what led us to book this spring break cruise on the Treasure, where we had so many sea days, only 3 port days on a 7-night. So we got to spend so much time actually enjoying and exploring the ship and getting to see everything that the ship had to offer.
Love it. Well, let's get into it. How did you get down to Florida? And did you do any pre-day stays?
Yep. So we live in the suburbs of Chicago, and we flew down on a Thursday morning. We stayed over at Beach Club. So it was spring break. I was a little worried about how crowded Beach Club would be, but they're redoing the pool. So it was actually very quiet there, shockingly. We got in, we dropped our bags, got into our room, and then headed over to Magic Kingdom. And we did the dessert party over at Magic Kingdom that evening, which was just wonderful. As a side note, that was a great way to be able to enjoy the fireworks and have that reserved seating. And then we spent the next day in Epcot on Friday. And then we got up on Saturday morning and headed to the port.
What transportation method did you use to get to the port?
So this was a little complicated. So we originally had booked DCL transportation when we first booked the cruise, but we did not have our pre-cruise stay booked at that time. So due to just a snafu, we were unfortunately booked to take DCL transportation from the airport. Our
Oh,
travel
no.
agent hadn't switched it over. So the night before the cruise, I went over to the front desk and said, "Hey, I haven't gotten, anything under the door or any emails." And they confirmed to us we did not have DCL transportation booked. So we had two options at that point. We could either wait until the morning and hope that they'd be able to get us on, or we could just Uber it to the airport and then take the transportation from the airport. But thankfully, my travel agent, she recognized it was her fault. It was not a big deal in any respect, and so she ended up just booking us an Uber to take us directly from Beach Club down to the port, which ended up being great because the day of our check-in at the port, all of their systems were down. So when we arrived, they were actually holding all the DCL buses and not letting them come into the port. So we were able to get in with our Uber, get right into our line. And then once things were back up and running, we were very quickly back into the port terminal.
That's crazy. I didn't even think I heard about that. And it would have been such a big occurrence.
It was crazy. I mean, at one point, one of the cast members there told us they had two iPads that were working to check everybody in.
Oh my
So
gosh.
yeah, so that wasn't great. But again, they got it up and running quickly and everything went really smoothly after that.
Awesome. Well, what was your embarkation process like? And what was it like boarding the Disney Treasure for the first time?
So after that original slip up or snafu of, the transportation and then them having their own issues in terms of their servers being down, the actual embarkation was very smooth. We got through security pretty quickly. Our port arrival time was 11 a.m. And I think we were on the ship by noon. And that walk across when you're heading up to the ship and, my kids seeing it, we were so excited and they announced our names and we walked into the Grand Hall. It was such a beautiful experience. The ship itself is gorgeous. We saw Aladdin and Jasmine waving at us and it just set the tone for the whole rest of the cruise. It was just the first impression of the ship was that it was just so gorgeous.
What activities were you able to book ahead of time?
So we did book the Royal Gathering for my daughter, and my son wasn't interested in that, which that was fine. So the two of us just did that. And we ended up also booking Apollo dinner that we subsequently decided to cancel on just because I wasn't sure how my daughter would do in terms of the kids clubs and if she'd want to be staying there for an extended period of time. And after we were on the ship for a couple of days, she did enjoy the kids club. She did go, but never long enough where I felt comfortable or confident that she'd want to stay. And as I said earlier, her being a type 1 diabetic, that adds some challenges where, my son, I would tell him, hey, we're going to go do this. So are you cool hanging out in the kids club? And he'd say, sure. And we couldn't drag him out of there anyway. But with my daughter, I was a little bit concerned if there was an issue. So we ended up just canceling that Apollo, but we did have some chances to do some stuff, just my husband and I on a more of an ad hoc basis while, she would be in the kids club. We were able to go enjoy some other of the adult only areas. But other than that, we didn't book anything else in advance other than a port excursion.
And then when you get on the ship, what is your first moments on a ship like, or your first afternoon? How do you guys usually spend that?
Yeah, so we got on, we just explored the Grand Hall a little bit. We walked up to the pool deck to check that out. And it was actually pretty empty because we were on the ship pretty early. So I just got some pictures of my kids up on the stage and, with the big background at Funnel Vision, the Disney Treasure. And we just kind of walked around that area, checked out the pool. And then as probably most people's first stop, we went over to Marceline Market and got some lunch. And once my kids were set up with their food, I actually left my family to go figure out our dining because we had booked this cruise so late that we had the late dining. And I was really hopeful to try to move us to the earlier dining. We were on the wait list, but I wanted to try to go and get, an actual request in person. That line was very long. So I hung out there by myself for a while, waiting to get in and put that request in. I was not very confident because the ship was full of kids, full of families. It was obviously a spring break cruise, but thankfully they told me, hey, start refreshing around 4 o'clock on the Disney Cruise app to see if your time will be changed. And it ended up getting changed. So we were very lucky that we got that early dining.
Oh, that's great. And I will say that on a 7-night cruise, that sometimes Disney has a little bit more leeway. And people should always check when they get on board if the dining time that they requested to move into wasn't done. If listeners are wondering maybe some of the different options, if you can't get your time moved, I have written a blog post on my website that discusses changing your dining time, what to do if your dining time hasn't changed, And then I know for once on a cruise for us, we got moved on the second night instead of the first four and then had the rest of the nights. But sometimes they'll just move you and be like, you're going to sit at this table this night and you're going to sit at this table this night. So Disney will try, if they can, to work around if they're able to for you. So I'm glad, though, that that worked out for you.
Yeah. And it was funny because the dining rotation, I didn't know if maybe our rotation would change if we were able to get it changed, and it did not. So we were originally planned to be in 1923 the first night, and that ended up being our rotation. And they also did ask me when I went in if we were able to be moved, would we be okay sitting with another family? And I actually said, look, I really want to change, but I really don't want to sit with another family, in part because of my daughter's dietary restrictions. And we're always very cognizant of that. I'm not going to order something that she can't eat that I know she would love. And I wouldn't want to sit at a table with other kids who are getting food she can't eat. So I was a little worried that when I said we don't want to sit with someone, that might hinder our ability, but thankfully they were able to move us. So that worked out really well. And we had a great dining location in all the restaurants. That was another thing I was worried about. If they were able to move us, were they going to just like stick us at an undesirable table? But we had a great experience.
Let's just stick for 1 second longer on your daughter's diabetes and sailing. Were there any extra things that you had to work with the kids club about or be worried about? Or how, I guess, because we definitely have listeners that experience the same thing. How did you handle that besides maybe not booking the Apollo dinner? What other adjustments did you make during the cruise?
Yeah. So one of the things that we did obviously was we bought the internet package because my daughter has a Dexcom, which is a continuous glucose monitor. She has an iPhone mini that she carries with her at all times, and that transmits her data directly to myself and to my husband. So we bought the internet package for all of us. And then that way we always could see, what her glucose number is. And when we did let her go to the kids club, she just had a little fanny pack that she wore with her phone. And then she did have some low blood sugar treatment, which for us could be candy, glucose tabs, juice, applesauce pouch. So we brought all that stuff on with us, and we just let the kids club know when I first was enrolling her online prior to the cruise. I put a note in her file. And then when we first checked in and did the whole process, the cast member that was helping us asked us a bunch of questions about, making sure that this wasn't about administering medicine, understanding that this was her being allowed to have some food was really just medical treatment. It's a very scary thing, I think, when the cast members hear what they're expected to, they want to make sure that they're not being put in a bad position. And so we let them know that, look, we're always going to know what's going on. We're never going to be far away. We're always going to be available. And anytime she went to the kids club, my son would also be with her, and he had his phone as well. And we bought him internet too. And we also could message through the app, obviously without internet. So at one point when they were together in the kids club, I lost her data. So I wasn't getting her numbers. So I just messaged him, hey buddy, can you go check on your sister? Check her phone, and he knows how to do that. So, it's, again, I think that part of the fear of traveling with a child who doesn't know how to manage themselves yet. She's 6 years old, so she's still young, and we don't want to put that on her. It was really nice that not only were the cast members willing to hear what the concerns would be, but we never were so far away that we were worried. And I would never send her in if she was, in a bad spot in terms of her blood sugar. It all worked out very, very well. We did carry on a bunch of items, but as long as they're prepackaged, that was never an issue. So we just had that all in our extra, I have a medical bag for her that was a carry-on, and so that all worked out.
Oh, good.
Getting back to your embarkation day, what kind of stateroom did you book and how did that work for your family?
Yeah, so we ended up booking, we were on deck 2 and we were in an ocean view stateroom. So this was our first time without a veranda. And truly it was the price difference was what led us to decide we would be okay with an ocean view. It was such a huge difference. And I love the veranda, and so does my husband, but for how much we use it, I couldn't really justify how much more it was going to cost. So we booked the ocean view. It was on deck 2. It was actually a great location. I was a little bit worried about that, but it was so nice to just be able to pop upstairs to get to all of the, the shows and kind of like the main hub of the ship. And when we were getting on and off the ship, that was really nice too, because we didn't have to take the elevators. We just headed down a flight of stairs. So we were in that room. The kids loved it. We had a huge porthole that they could climb up in. Their stuffed animals were up there. We had pillows in there. We're hanging out in there. My son would read in there. So we loved the room. And the room itself was gorgeous. Obviously, it's brand new. The bathroom is so nice. Everything was just beautiful.
Did you do the sail away party?
We did. Yep. So we went and got to do the sail away party. Before that, my kids had their swimsuits in our carry-on. So of course they couldn't help themselves and had to pop their swimsuits on and went swimming after lunch. And then we went to the room, got ourselves situated, went to the sail away party after our muster drill. And it was just a great way to kick everything off.
Well, why don't we get into sailing on the Treasure, and we will make our way around the ship, talk about dining, entertainment, shows. Why don't we go ahead and discuss dining? We already discussed changing your dining, but let us know what you thought of the restaurants on board and what were some of the highlight meals.
We've sailed on the Wish before, so we have experience with 1923. That was our first night dining. And so because of the way the rotation works, ended up being there 3 times in total. I love 1923. I love just walking around and looking all the artwork. We had a great table from my perspective because we were one of those first tables right when you walk in. So that was really nice. Like if the kids had to use the restroom, we could just pop right out. It didn't feel crowded. And in terms of the dining overall, Disney Cruise Line does such a great job. The food's great. I mean, when you think about how many people they're feeding every night, I think the quality of the food's fantastic. And as I mentioned, my daughter has celiac disease. So our first night, we talked with our service team, and then we would just pre-order her food for the following night, every night while we were at dinner. She's 6. She's not looking she doesn't have a particularly sophisticated palate. So it was a lot of hot dogs and chicken fingers, pizza, pasta, but she always had plenty of food and was always happy. So the first night at 1923 was a great way to kick it off. My husband and I had a great meal. We ended up buying the wine package. So we had a bottle of wine with dinner, kind of every other night.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second because it has been a hot minute since anybody has discussed the wine package. So I know there's a flyer that's on your table like the first night, but that has been the last I've ever truly paid attention to it. And again, like I said, I don't think we've talked about it at all. So do you pick a color? Do you pick red? Do you pick white? Did you feel like it was a good value? How does it?
Yeah, so you can pick, I believe it's 4, 5, or 7 bottles of wine for a 7-night cruise. And then there's
I want the 7-night bottle.
Yeah.
7 bottles and 7 nights option.
Yeah,
that seems like a lot.
Maybe if we had more adults, that would make more sense. I'm on vacation. I want to enjoy myself. I enjoy wine with dinner. So does my husband. And so we kind of looked at it as, we bought the 5-bottle package, realizing that not every night were we going to want wine. I knew when we went to the Coco restaurant, I was going to want to try some tequila-based drinks. And then we also carry on wine. There's 2 different options. There's kind of the standard package or the premium package. And then you can see what bottles are available to you in either of those selections. So we chose the premium package, and then every night we would just pick a bottle off of that package. If you don't finish your wine, you can take it with you and bring it back to your stateroom or wherever you're going that evening, or they'll just have it for you the next night at dinner. So it was really nice. It made it very easy. From a value perspective, I would say it's still pretty expensive, but it's less expensive than ordering individual glasses of wine if you plan to have more than one.
Honestly, I don't know why we haven't talked about this more and why more people don't do it. This is great because realistically, especially if you're splitting it with somebody, it's like 2.5 glasses of wine per person for a party of 2. And that's like the perfect amount. Even if you're doing it like you only want 1 glass for dinner or you want the 2.5. Yeah, no, that's great. And then did you find that the premium wine was like a decent wine selection?
It was. And I mean, I always look at the actual bottles that are available because not that we're extremely particular, but there's certain wines I like, there's certain wines my husband likes. So I'm more looking at, is there things on this list that I'm going to want to drink? By no means is the premium package some, incredibly expensive bottle of wine, but it's wine I knew I wanted to drink. So I was happy with that. And then also, just as a side note, if you end up having lunch in one of the restaurants, you can also get a glass of wine from one of your bottles that way too. You don't have to just do it at dinner.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, one more question. If you did like the 5-pack bottle package, if you wanted 5 of the same bottles, could you do that?
Yep. So we did end up doing that. There's a particular wine that I like, and we ordered that, I think, at least 2 times, if not 3.
Well, let's turn back towards our rotational dining then. We talked about 1923. Let's move into Coco.
Yeah. So Coco was our third night. I loved the atmosphere in Coco. My kids loved it. It was really fun. It's less of a show, I would say, than in like the Arendelle, for example, on the Wish, where you're really paying attention the entire time. It's more just like a dining experience, but we really loved it. The music was great. I've heard people say it's loud. I didn't find it to be particularly loud. I thought it was appropriate for what you're doing, where you can pay attention, but you can still talk to your family or whoever you're sailing with. The restaurant itself is beautiful. I thought the food was really good. The drinks were good. My kids got horchata in the little like cocoa mugs that we brought home. And I thought the Coco was a great dining experience, not only the food, but the atmosphere.
You mentioned being excited to try the drinks there. What did you have and what did you think?
I did. So tequila is my drink of choice. If I'm going to order a cocktail, it's usually going to be a margarita. And so I had like their version of a spicy margarita, and I think I had 3 of them, if that tells you if I liked it or not. That was, I think, my favorite cocktail on the ship. It was their version of a spicy margarita. And then my husband got mezcal drink that he also really enjoyed. So
awesome. Well, we have one more rotational restaurant to talk about, World of Marvel. You have done the first night before. What did you think of this restaurant?
I liked World of Marvel. We're not huge Marvel people, so I don't know all the lore. I don't know everything, but I think they do a good job of making it fun, even if you're not a huge Marvel fan, with like the Guardians of the Galaxy kind of like 80s music. That whole theme going on was really fun. And of course, when you have Spider-Man come out and everybody loves that part, right? I would say that was my least favorite restaurant, not because I didn't like it, but just because I enjoyed 1920 that much more.
And what other dining did you do around the ship? Where did you find yourself for lunches? And what did you enjoy?
Yeah, so we did Marceline Market a fair amount, and then we would eat up on the pool deck most days as well for lunch. On one of our port excursion days, my daughter and I came back to the ship early, and we ended up doing lunch at 1923. That just was what lunch was for that day for us. And that was really enjoyable. I never had done lunch before in a restaurant, in one of the sit-down restaurants on the ship. And it was a really nice, relaxing environment. The restaurant was maybe an eighth full, and we just really got to take our time, and we got a beautiful view. So we did enjoy doing lunch in 1923. I had never done that before. But other than that, we did a little bit of room service, and my kids obviously were wanting to be at the pool a lot. So we did the pool deck for lunch. But, I think that those spaces are so nice. The pool deck has such amazing offerings, and kind of our habit, so to speak, was, I would go find a cast member to place an allergy order for my daughter, go around, get everybody else food. And then by the time we got everyone else's food, hers would be ready. And then we'd go find a spot to eat.
That's a great plan.
Love it. Well, why don't we move into entertainment and activities around the ship? What things did you find yourselves getting up to, activities, or did you go and see any of the like non-theater shows?
Yeah. So like I said, when we first started talking, my kids' biggest thing this cruise was they wanted to do more on the ship. So our last cruise before this, we got off the ship almost every single day for the entire day, which was lovely. But this cruise was really intended to be, let's relax, let's enjoy. We would go into the app and in the morning, start hearting everything we wanted to do. My kids wanted to see characters. We wanted to see different shows. My son loved to plan different things in the kids club. He would do Foursquare competitions, and they wanted to do the Incredibles zone, hero zone in the basketball court area. So our first day, actually, my husband had a massage booked in the morning, which was the only time I could get him a massage that wasn't like during dinner. So he went to his massage. Me and the kids went to breakfast, and we went to the pool for a little bit till he was done. And then I had said to my kids, I'm fine that this is going to be a relaxing cruise, but there's going to be things that mom wants to do, and you guys have to do them with me. So I kind of had my one thing a day. You guys got to do this if I say that this is what we're doing today. That was kind of how we planned out our days. And so we did do the hero zone. My kids, my husband and my son raced each other, and I stood up on top and recorded them and watched them go through. So that was really fun. And my kids love being in the pool, which it's so funny because the pools are small. We're big pool people. And it's just kind of funny that like we're on this beautiful ship with so much to do. And of course the kids are going to gravitate towards the pool. But we wanted to do the aqueduct. Our sailing was really, really windy. We were moving really fast because we were going all the way, obviously, from Port Canaveral all the way down. So the aqueduct was closed every sea day. So we were like waiting and stalking, like, is it going to open? Is it going to open? Once we realized it wasn't going to open that first day, then we retreated back inside and we checked out some characters. My kids really wanted to meet Stitch. So we had to kind of figure out how we were going to make sure we made that happen. The only character we waited for a long time was Stitch.
I was going to say, he's always the most popular, I feel like, on these cruises and have the longest lines.
The first day, by the time we got there, and I think it was maybe still 10 minutes before, the line was already so long. And that was my son's one character he wanted to meet. So when we saw him pop up, I think it was maybe the fourth or fifth day, we went and got there early, and we still had to wait a long time, but it was worth it. That was the one character he wanted. So I had to make that happen for him.
What about some of the other like ship specific activities? Did you and your husband, for example, go and see Choose Your Adventure, the adult show?
No, we didn't do any adult stuff, which I was sad about because I really wanted to do Match Your Mate because it is, but my daughter was super tired, and I feel like there's certain things I wanted to do, but we just had to pivot. So we didn't do any of those.
I get it. There'll be other cruises, but
and my son is definitely there. I mean, he made a buddy the first night of the cruise, and if I didn't force him to be with us, we probably would have never seen him again.
I love that.
He loves the kids clubs. And we let him check himself in and out. He's 9. So I told him he could do that if he promised to just let us know if he was leaving. So he would check himself in for an activity he wanted to do. And then he would say, hey, we're going to go play basketball, or they went to go see a movie, or what, he's definitely there. So my daughter hopefully is right behind him. But yeah, so I did a lot of the little stuff with her while he was off doing his own thing. We went and did the little Encanto party experience that was in Sarabi during the day.
How was that?
It was really cute, but it was funny because we had just been at Epcot, and they basically do the exact same thing at Epcot. So, and I hadn't been to the Epcot show. So when we sat down for that, I said, oh, this seems familiar. But my daughter loved it. They bring the kids all up on stage with instruments, and then they bring them all up to sing, the various songs, and they let them parade across the stage. So she was in heaven. She loved it.
So it's interactive. That's really good to know.
Yeah. Yeah. So they play like the Louisa song, and then all the kids go up and like show their muscles. It was really cute.
And then did you guys watch any of the shows that were specific to the treasure in the Grand Hall, like the Aladdin show? And did they even offer it? And Jungle Cruise? Yeah. So, and it's funny because obviously listening to other people and being part of these different Facebook groups and whatnot about specific to the cruise, everyone was talking about, the sage and coriander and how wonderful sage and coriander were. And I think our cruise was the first cruise that it was a switch, and there was not even a coriander. There was some issue, like a medical issue. So Sage was on his own. And maybe I'm wrong. I could be misgendering them. I think Sage is the man and Coriander is the woman. So a lot of those shows were either not offered or they were different. So we weren't making those a priority just because I wasn't hearing that was a big draw. We did go see the new Snow White movie in the theater, in Neverland Theater, I think it was, which I thought was wonderful. I thought it was great. I've heard mixed things. My daughter and I loved it.
So that was a fun thing to do one day. I'm trying to think of what other specific shows we did. And we did the color spin party up on the deck, which I know is not specific to Treasure. We hadn't done that before, and that was really, really fun. My kids are obsessed with Goofy movie, and Max comes out with Goofy and sings one of the Powerline songs. So that was a big hit for my family.
What else happens at that?
Yeah, so it's all the characters are up on stage and there's a color wheel. They spin the wheel. Each color is assigned to a different one of the Fab Five. And then that person gets to pick their song and then everybody dances. So it was really fun. It was a really cute little show.
What time was it? Was it in between the dinner seatings?
No, it was during the day. It was prior to dinner.
Oh, all right. Yeah, that's good to know. See, another thing we haven't talked about. Jacqueline, this is great. So many new things.
Well, let's turn towards the theater shows then. What shows were you able to see and what did you think of them?
We saw all the shows, which that was a non-negotiable for me. I think part of the great thing about Disney Cruise is the amazing shows. So we obviously everyone's talking about Moana and how wonderful it is. So that was a huge priority for us. And I told my son he could skip Beauty and the Beast, but he had to come to Moana with us. And we had just seen Beauty and the Beast on the Dream, not to take away from it, but it's basically the same exact show. So that wasn't as much of a priority for me, but I wanted to see Moana. So we went and saw the first show, which is what Sees the Adventure with, all the characters. So that was really great. We didn't have to get in line super early. I think we went down maybe, we kind of left dinner and meandered our way over there and had no problem getting a seat. That was not a problem.
Was that a night 1 or night 2 for you?
It was on night 2. There was no show on night 1. Yeah, which was, for a 7-night cruise, there's only 3 shows, which, and I shouldn't say that. There's only 3, Broadway style shows. And then we also there was one night with a ventriloquist and one night with a magician. So we did actually go see the ventriloquist, which my kids really liked. That was fun and something different, that I probably would never do at home, but it was a fun little activity and it was a great show. The kids liked it. We liked it too. And then for our Beauty and the Beast night, we actually went and got in line decently early. And obviously we were going to the second show because we had first dining. And during the first show, there was multiple technical difficulties and the show ran late and then it started late for us as well. So we were a little bit worried about what might happen, but then ours went off without a hitch. So whatever was happening in the first show, they figured it out. And then our Castaway day was the Moana show and they did offer a matinee that day, but I didn't want to give up any of my time on Castaway. So we just, as soon as we were done with dinner, I sent my husband, go wait in line, went and did some stuff with the kids in the Grand Hall, walked around, and then him and I swapped. And then I waited in line the rest of the time. And we ended up getting great seats for Moana, which was a fantastic, fantastic show.
It's just so good.
It was so good. I mean, not only did they take the movie and just do a wonderful job of figuring out how to turn that into a stage show, cutting out what needed to be cut out. But the actors were so great. I mean, Moana's father was wonderful. The grandmother, Moana herself.
The grandmother was hilarious. I think you had a different grandmother, but still, they cast her so well. She was so funny.
Yeah, it was really funny. And I love the little things they added, the little jokes. And, there was a little bit of adult humor. And then just visually, it was just such a stunning show. We all loved it. It was great.
Awesome. Well, were there any areas around the ship that you and your husband were able to take advantage of, like any of the lounges?
Yeah, actually, we went to every single one of the lounges. We did Haunted Mansion a couple of times, once with my kids so they could see it earlier in the day. And then we went, just the two of us, one night to get a drink, and we wanted to stay and hang out and kind of see the entirety of the 20 minutes or so go by. So you see the different things that they do. So Haunted Mansion was a huge draw for me. I thought that it was such a cool concept. We really enjoyed it in there. It's just so tiny that I feel like it's so immersive. So I understand why it has to be small. And it was never that crowded while we were there. It felt so small. I feel like if it was a little bit bigger, you'd feel like more of a social environment. Everybody was just kind of there to get their drink and look around and leave is kind of the vibe I got. But I thought the space was really, really cool. And we, got one of the drinks that, comes in the box and the, smoke comes out and, you got to do the immersive drink. So that was really cool. Our first cruise on the Wish, we never even made it to any of the adult spaces. I mean, we were on a 3-night. It was our first cruise. We didn't know what we were doing. I didn't even know that the Rose Bar existed. I never even looked up by where Apollo is and whatnot. So that was another thing that was on my bucket list that I told my husband, like, I want to go have a drink at the Rose and see all of that. So we were able to do that one night. We figured out a time that my kids would both want to be in activities in the kids club before dinner. And then him and I got to go and enjoy a drink at the Rose, which was just a beautiful space, just with the expansive views. And that was really, really enjoyable.
Yeah, the views up there are it makes it one of my favorite lounge spaces.
For sure. Seeing the ocean, that's maybe one of the drawbacks of some of these bigger ships is that they have less ocean viewing spaces, in my opinion. I just want to see the ocean as much as possible. So did you drink from the sommeliers bucket?
We didn't, only because I wanted to get the rose cocktail, the enchanted rose, whatever. So I wanted to get that cocktail. And I think that was our last night that we went up there? It might have been our last night, and we still had a bottle of wine to drink from our wine package. So we decided to skip that. But I have heard that that's a great way to get, a really nice glass of wine for a really reasonable price. So we skipped it this time. And then we got the message on the app, oh, your daughter's ready to leave the kids club. So we only were able to stay for one drink, but it was really enjoyable still. And that whole space is just so nice. I definitely hope that in the future we can make it work to go to Palo, because I really am interested in trying that.
You will. Just keep cruising.
No plans to stop. So
good answer. Well, we have been all over the beautiful Disney treasure, but it is time to disembark and talk about some port stops. So you are on an Eastern Caribbean. You've got stops in Tortola, San Juan, and Castaway. What did you get up to in Tortola?
Yeah, so in Tortola, we had pre-booked a private excursion on a small catamaran that was piloted for us, obviously. And that was just a half day excursion. So we got off the ship in the morning. I didn't really know what to expect in terms of was there much to do or see close to the port. But my husband is the kind of person where, okay, we had been on the ship for 3 days and he was ready to get off. He gets kind of cooped up and he was ready to get on land. And I don't think I mentioned this either, but our sailing was incredibly rocky. I don't even remember feeling movement in prior cruises. This one was like you'd be walking down the hall and you'd have to steady yourself. It was a very, very rocky cruise. So to get off the ship, my husband was like, let's get off in the morning. I said, okay. So we got off, we walked around the port area, just kind of checked things out. There's really not that much to do right in that immediate area. And we were walking distance from a little restaurant that we were going to be meeting our captain. So we went over there and had lunch and then got on our boat with our captain. He took us out and it was so nice to be able to just do what we wanted to do. My son really wanted to see some sea turtles and he was like, okay, I got you, buddy. And took us right to where he had just seen a bunch earlier that day.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So we got to swim with the sea turtles and there were stingrays and we had all the snorkel equipment. So we were just, snorkeling and swimming around. And then he took us just all around. There was this boat that was like a bar in the middle of the ocean there. And we went up there and you could jump off the boat, 15 feet off the boat into the ocean. So we all did that. Not my daughter, but me and my husband and my son. And it just enjoyed a beautiful day. I mean, the weather was great. It had rained a little bit in the morning. And then by the time we got out there, it was beautiful and just enjoyed a perfect beachy swimming ocean day.
That sounds lovely. How did you book that?
That was through Viator. And I just booked it through the app. We had used Viator for all of our private excursions when we did our Mediterranean tour and cruise, and we had no issues. It's very simple to book. We've never done a Disney excursion, partially because if I ever were to have an issue with my daughter and I need to get her back on the ship, I want to be able to be in control of that. And so this way it was like, if we wanted to end the day early, he would just take us back. We wouldn't be, ruining anyone else's time or have to worry about that sort of timing. So it was expensive, but it was totally worth it. We really enjoyed our day.
Love it. Definitely a very smart way to do it as well. I think that's brilliant. Well, let's move into San Juan. What did you do in San Juan?
So San Juan, we actually had no plans because there was a lot of rumblings about whether Disney was even going to be able to get into that port. I guess they have one large terminal that had been damaged by a different ship. And of course, in my Facebook cruise group, people were chattering about it all the time. And I didn't have any strong inclinations that I wanted to see anything or do anything there. a lot of the excursions were more based for older kids or were very much like adventure excursions that I didn't think my 6-year-old could handle, or she wasn't even old enough to be able to do those. So we just decided that we would just get off and walk around and kind of check out the sights. And it ended up being not a great day weather-wise. It was raining on and off. And, we got off, we walked around, we got some gelato. We went to that famous street where, the umbrellas used to be, but they've now changed that. It's not even there anymore. So after about an hour and a half, my daughter and I decided, like, we're not really feeling San Juan. We've seen all we need to see. So her and I headed back to the ship so that my husband and my son could go get lunch and go wherever they wanted and not have to be restricted by necessarily celiac safe food. So they went and got lunch and hung out a little bit more. And her and I went back to the ship and got lunch at 19.
Well, we have one more port stop to talk about. Disney's lovely original private island, Castaway. What did you get up to in Castaway?
So we, of course, got up in the morning and got our churro Mickey waffles, and that was a must do. And everyone needs to do that, of course. And if you have a dietary restriction, you just place your order the night before, which I'm sure if you listen to this podcast, you know that. So we got our churro Mickey waffles.
I do have a question about that though. Are they altered a little bit differently for your daughter with diabetes or?
No. And so that's actually funny. I should have mentioned that when we talked about our first night. So because she's diabetic, they actually did try to bring her the first night, like a gluten-free, sugar-free dessert. And I just let our server know that, she has to get insulin no matter what she eats. She's type 1. So we confirmed with him, like, nope, she can have sugar. We're good there. And so, yeah, the only restriction that was, placed on her account, so to speak, was, yeah.
Oh, perfect. So she got the good churro waffles?
Yeah. So she got the good churro waffles and we all got them, of course, but, we placed her order, got her, going. And that's kind of how we would always handle meal times. If you have someone who's traveling with an allergy, obviously, because it's my baby girl, I'm going to make sure she's got her food. So what we kind of did was we would find a cast member, place her order, let them know where we'd be seating. Her and I would go take a seat. My husband and my son would go get their food from the buffet. They'd come back. And then once she had her food, then I'd go get my food so that she would never have to be sitting there without eating and the rest of us are eating around her.
That's a good plan. And then, yeah, for the listeners, if you have an allergy order, we have talked about it before, but the head waiters that you're going to place your order with are typically situated in the front, just after the hand washing stations on both ends of the restaurant that are open. And then there should be, in theory, one on the pool deck as well. Sometimes they're not at their post. They're either delivering food. The person who's like greeting you will call somebody over. Sometimes it can be busy and it's even more difficult to get the head waiters to come around. But in theory, that is where they would be located, right in the entrance in the little stands that are right there.
But yeah, and sometimes you have to chase them down, and there would be comical times when I'm literally just following someone walking behind as they're going all the way around. But eventually you get them, you place your order, and we always would just kind of over order, not knowing exactly what my daughter would want to eat. And if you have an allergy, definitely bring with you some sort of food receptacle, whether that's like containers or Ziplocs, because I would just grab stuff for her for later, throw it in my bag, whether we were getting off the ship or just to bring back to the room to make sure she always had a snack readily available, because you can't get stuff as quickly when you have an allergy.
That's smart.
So after the enjoyment of the churro waffles and now sitting in our bellies, we got off the ship. We got off pretty early. I would say there was not that many people that were ahead of us getting off the ship, except, maybe people with cabanas or concierge or something. We went and found a spot at the family beach, got our stuff set up on a couple chairs with an umbrella. And we basically just spent the entire day in the ocean, except for when we were eating. It was a beautiful day at Castaway. Weather was perfect. The water temperature was great. And we basically just swam all day. We went over to the Pelican Plunge. The kids did the little obstacle course area. My husband and my son threw snorkel gear on and did a little snorkeling. My son played a ton of basketball, which I didn't even know they had. They had a little miniature basketball courts. And Yeah, I mean, Castaway is so nice because you don't have to plan anything. I'm sure people do. I know there's excursions, but we don't find that necessary at all. It's just, I mean, you're on a beautiful beach. You can go eat whatever you want. There's all you can eat ice cream, obviously, which is always a hit for everybody. And we just enjoyed the beautiful weather.
Did your children go into the kids clubs at all?
They didn't. They didn't. But again, we didn't see my son that much for a big portion of the day because he was at the basketball area. So, which was, there was cast members there like attending to the kids, but it wasn't like he wasn't officially in the kids club.
Yeah. Well, any other notes from your sailing before we head into disembarkation?
I don't think I talked about that. I went to the spa too. I went and got a massage and a facial, which was wonderful. It's such a beautiful space. The funny thing was though that was the day that we were really cruising towards Tortola, and wherever, because of where the spa is located, you could really feel the movement in the spa, which didn't bother me, and none of my family was bothered by it at any point during the cruise, but it was just kind of crazy how much you could feel. And I'm trying to think of what we haven't talked about. I think one of the things people don't enjoy enough, maybe in wanting to see it all and do it all. Our first night, when my son went to the kids club, my daughter made a couple of friends just in the grand hall, and there was nothing going on there formally. So the way that the Scat Cat Lounge is, there's like a walk up to it. You don't have to actually go into Scat Cat. You can order drinks from outside and just sit there with a view of the grand hall. And a bunch of these little girls were like putting on a little show on the stage, and we just met their parents and just like enjoyed some drinks and enjoyed that atmosphere. You're so focused on like looking at the activities and what do we want to do. That was just like a really nice, enjoyable night for us.
Love that. Well, sadly, all cruises have to end. What was your disembarkation process like, and how was it getting back home?
Yeah, so we went and we had early breakfast. Obviously, we had early dining. So we got our bags packed the night before, except for, one that we would have our miscellaneous stuff in the morning. My son stayed in the kids club till midnight. I told him that was a mistake. And then he woke up in the morning very crabby and not happy to be leaving. So we dragged everybody out of the room. We went and had breakfast at 1923. Our flight out, to head back to Chicago, I think our flight was around 12:40, which we knew was like kind of cutting it close. So we finished up breakfast, and then we were waiting for our tag to be called. And I just was like, happened to chat with a cast member who was directing people, and she said, "Oh, you don't need to wait for your tag to be called. Like, you can get off anytime you want." And I said, "Oh, I thought the whole point was you have to wait for your tag." And she's like, "Well, no, anyone can get off anytime. Your bags just might not be ready." But she's like, "Trust me, they're probably going to be ready." I had never heard this. I thought this was like a very regimented thing. So sure enough, like they didn't care that we hadn't had our bag. I think we were goofy, orange goofy. They didn't care. We just got right off. And then as we were getting off, we heard them make the announcement for Orange Goofy. So when we got down there, our bags were ready. I don't know if that's a tip or a trick, but apparently you can get off anytime you want. I don't know.
Yeah, a lot of times that's actually used as a way to spread the disembarkation process out. Most times the bags are already there before they even start.
So I was not aware of that. So that was nice. So we got off and we were taking DCL transport back to the airport, which thankfully that hadn't been canceled in the whole mix up of our transportation. So we grabbed our bags, got on the bus, got to the airport, and we do TSA Cares, which is something that you can sign up for in advance. If anyone has any kids, or if you yourself have special medical needs, or if you carry medication with you or anything that can't go through security, look into just going on TSA Cares, and you can submit your flight info, and they'll give you a phone number to call when you arrive at the airport. And then a TSA agent will actually walk you through security, make sure that there's no issues with, anything that you're bringing with you. My daughter, wears a insulin pump, and she wears a continuous glucose monitor that can't go through a traditional metal detector. So she has to be hand checked. And so, yeah, so that's just a quick tip for anybody. If you're dealing with that, that's an option that you have. So we got through security pretty quickly at MCO and went and hung out till our flight.
Before we take the show out, I have just a couple last questions for you. One, did you utilize the photo package on the sailing?
We did, which I think is so worth it. especially for such a long sailing and the amount of characters that are there and all the other photo opportunities that exist. We did do some of the like special photo opportunities like on Pirate Night. And there was one night where there was an Encanto specialty photo shoot where they, do the little like magic afterwards and they Photoshop stuff in. And it's a nice way to get family pictures without somebody always having to be out of the photos. My daughter also did the Royal Gathering, so she got all of those photos as well. So yeah, I think that's a great way to make sure you always have those memories and everybody in the picture.
Awesome. Did you have any notable cast interactions from the sailing that we haven't discussed already?
No, nothing crazy. I mean, the cast members were wonderful, but nothing like that comes to mind that is super notable.
That is A-okay. Well, then my last question and the most important one now, what is next for you?
So we, of course, booked a placeholder because why not? Money has no object when you're on the ship at that point, right? So we booked a placeholder and we're actually surprising my kids. So hopefully they won't find their way to this podcast. And their big Christmas present is going to be a cruise that we're going to leave on the day after New Year's. So we're actually going to go down to Galveston and do the Magic for a 5-night, which will be, it's kind of funny, like we're going from the newest ship to the oldest ship, but I'm really, really excited for that one. I'm excited for like the smaller ship and to kind of see what that environment is like. So yeah, we're leaving on January 2nd to do Bahamas tour.
Love it. Well, Jacqueline, thank you so much for coming on and sharing you and your family's experience on the Disney Treasure.
Thank you guys so much for having me. This was fun.
And for filling out the Be on the Show request. So if anybody wants to submit one, they can. It's in our show notes. You can fill out the form. So thank you for filling that out. And hopefully you'll do that when you get back from your Magic cruise out of Galveston, because we definitely need more discussions about A, the Magic, and B, Galveston.
Yes, I would love to. Thank you guys so much.
Absolutely. Well, Christy, where can our listeners follow you?
You can find me at Pack Your Pixie Dust all over the internet. And Lake has even set up a work with me, contact me form in our show notes. So you could fill that out. So if you would like to work with me going forward to help you plan your magical vacations. And Lake, where can we find you?
You can find me at MouseGen on Instagram and YouTube. And of course, you can follow the podcast at DCL Podcast on Instagram and Facebook. And you can always keep up to date with us on our website at dclpodcast.com. But that is going to do it for this episode. Thank you all so much for listening, and we will see you next time on the DCL Podcast. Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Well, that's going to wrap up our show. Once again, we want to thank Jacqueline for coming on and sharing her family's adventure on the Disney Treasure. If you're enjoying the show, we greatly appreciate you leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. We'd also like to thank our Patreons who help make this show happen each and every week for us. You too can help support the show by visiting us at patreon.com/DCL Podcast. Whether you're boarding a cruise, enjoying a trip to the parks, or adventuring outside of Disney, on behalf of myself, Christy, and Steve, we want to wish you smooth sailings and safe travels. And we'll see you next time on the DCL Podcast.
The DCL Podcast is not affiliated with the Disney Cruise Line, Walt Disney Company, Adventures by Disney, or Run Disney. All of the opinions expressed on our shows are those of the hosts and the guests who appear on the show. If you have any questions about any of these products, please contact the Walt Disney Company.